We're going to light our chalice, and with that, we'll be using the words that are written by our own Reverend Jamie Yandel. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. It's for the promise of a new day, for the renewal of belonging, for the connection that we're building between and beyond all that is, all that was, and all that is to come. May our sparks merge in communion of the heart and the soul to greet this day. Rena?
As our call to worship this morning, I offer you these words from Laura Bogle. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, the old mountains that hold us steady to our ground, the forests that give us their healing green, the flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, the fields that give us our daily bread, the stars that show us our place, the wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped it, the Tonkawa, the settlers, the farmers, the hunters, the immigrants, the artists, the families, the explorers, the business people, the engineers, the builders, the scientists, the teachers, the workers, the leaders. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their home in this land, the ones here now and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours.
Our affirmation is an expression of how we covenant with one another. So I invite you to read along with me as the words are projected. The doctrine of this church is love.
We are here to love.
The quest of truth is its sacrament.
We are here to learn.
Service is its prayer.
We are here to care for others.
And to dwell together in peace.
We are here to live in peace.
To seek knowledge in freedom.
We are here to honor our differences.
To serve humanity in fellowship.
We are all connected in spirit.
To the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine.
We are here to grow.
Thus do we covenant with one another.
This we promise to do together.
Corinna, time for the Wonder Box.
If there is anyone in the back who would like to come forward to make a guess as to what might be in the Wonder Box today, I'm going to shake it. Sounds kind of heavy, maybe. I can tell you it feels kind of heavy. You want to come forward? You can help me open it if you want to. Come on up. We celebrate curiosity at San Gabriel, and we use our wondering minds. Are you ready? Do you want to make a guess if it's kind of heavy? What could it be? Anyone else want to make a guess? What might be in here? Rocks? An elephant. Any other guesses what might be in here? A book, yeah. Definitely sounds like it might be a book. Are we ready to open it up? You want to come, Charlotte? Can you see what it is, everybody? I'm going to go back to the microphone. It's a little house. It's actually been in the Wonder Box before. This is something that normally sits on the shelf at my house. What does that make you think of, a little house? Home, that's right. Mr. Rogers. That's right, we've got a little house. All right, let's see what today's story has to do about houses and homes.
Our Big Home, an Earth poem, written by Linda Glazer, art by Elisa Clevin. Published by Millbrook Press. We all live here, people, ants, elephants, trees, lizards, lichen, turtles, bees. We all share the same big home. We share the water, we splash and slosh and swim in water, and of course we all drink water. Whales, dolphins, manatees, penguins, palm trees, you and me, we all share the water here on Earth, our big blue home. Rain slides down my nose and trickles in between my toes. Rain cleans the whole world. It waters forests of giant trees and wakes up life in tiny seeds. It brings fresh water to you and me. We all share the rain here on Earth, our green, growing home. The sun warms us all around the world. Sunflowers, sparrows, apple trees, foxes, ferns, and you and me. Warm fingers and toes, warm roots and leaves. We all share the sun here on Earth, our big, sun-warmed home. And there's dirt all around, our earth, our ground. Soil where seeds wait and where trees are born, where earthworms live and rabbits dig. Earth that holds life, dirt that feels good under my feet. We all share the soil here on Earth, our big, life-holding home. And there's air everywhere, far, far away and right next door. We all breathe Earth's air. Ah, doesn't it feel good to breathe? People, lizards, ladybugs, oak trees, sweet peas, even weeds. We all share the air here on Earth, our big, fresh air home. Wind whooshes and whirls and sweeps and swirls. It stirs the grass and shakes the trees. It carries rain and spreads new seeds. It brings fresh air. It blows kids' hair. All around the world, wind touches us all here on Earth, our big whirling home. The sky, our huge changing picture up there. I love our sky, don't you? Great sweeps of blue, dabs and swirls of clouds, wild splashes at sunset. Wherever we are, we look up and see sky, sky, sky. Here on Earth, our big home, under the sky. The night when stars sparkle in the deep, endless deep, the hushed time when we sink into sleep, when night animals roam and night flowers bloom. We all have a time of darkness here on Earth, our home under the big blanket of night. And our moon travels across the sky, a creamy pearl, a thin white sail. Full moon, new moon, shaping our night. We all share the moon, here, there, everywhere on Earth, our big moonlit home. When I stretch or dance or hop or laugh, when I leap in the air or lay in the grass, I feel alive. We all have that aliveness. Trees, frogs, bees, grass, spiders, snakes, earthworms, bats. We all share life, every one of us, here on Earth, our big life-giving home. We share air, water, soil, sky, sun, rain, and being alive. And we all share one home here on Earth, our precious living home. The end.
What it was about. Our earth is our home, and caring for the earth is caring for our home. If we don't care for it, we might wind up with no place to live, or at least not a healthy place to live. So later in the service, we're going to talk a little bit about ways that we can care for our earth home. My name is Corinna Whitaker-Lewis. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve as your Director of Religious Education, and it is an honor to be with you this morning from the pulpit. Yesterday was Earth Day, and what a gorgeous day it was. I hope you were able to spend time outdoors in that wonderful weather. Today, not so much, but I hope we get the rain that we said we might get, because as Texans, we know to have gratitude for rainy days. I am hopeful for a good year ahead this year. So far, it's been pretty good. Not too hot, not too cold, not too dry, not too wet, just right. We'd all like a Goldilocks year, wouldn't we? Our planet has many different climatological zones, some that are very extreme and others that are temperate. Humans have used our ingenuity and our technology to make it possible for us to live almost anywhere on Earth. How many of us would live in Texas if we didn't have air conditioning? Ironically, the means by which we as the human race have come to inhabit almost every inch of the planet are also the means that give us some measure of distance from it. With technology like air conditioning, automobiles, and airplanes, like fiberglass insulation and plastics and synthetic fabrics, we can avoid, ignore, or at least tolerate many weather and temperature extremes. Now, don't get me wrong, I like having a roof over my head, and I like we have the option to have coffee hour inside instead of outside. But those protections also do create some measure of distance, I believe, that can allow us to deny or forget the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. So I'm going to invite you now to take a moment to remind yourself of that interdependence with a simple moment of meditation. And you can stand for this if you want, or you can remain seated. You may want to close your eyes. Center your concentration on your feet. As your feet rest on the floor, visualize the ground under the floor. See in your mind's eye the layers of soil, and then bedrock, and then beyond. We are resting on this ground, on this earth. Now, if you are able, reach your arms up into the sky, and we feel the air around our hands. And above our hands, above the roof of this building, we see the clouds. We feel the rain. Even further, above the clouds, we feel the sun shining, the wind blowing. And further we go to the very edge of our planet's atmosphere. We are stretching like a tree almost. We have a sense of place on this earth. From feet to hands, from soil to sky. Take a deep breath and open your eyes if you close them. As Unitarian Universalists, we honor the sacred, interdependent web of all existence. With humility, we understand our place in this web. We covenant to care for and respect the earth and all beings by fostering relationships of mutuality. We work to repair the bonds we have broken. Our UUA president, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, shares with us, may the celebration of this Earth Day bring us back to the certain knowledge that we belong to each other, to the earth, and to the web of creation itself. In that sense, Earth Day is a wonderful expression of our UU faith. I learned a little more about it from the earthday.org website. Begun in 1970, it was a call to action. It gave voice to a rising environmental consciousness that was grounded in concerns about pollution and public health, in particular air pollution and smog from auto emissions from leaded gas. Silent Spring had just been written. Who remembers those days? Raise your hand if there was anyone who took part in the first Earth Day. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. Like many forms of consciousness raising and resistance, it began with students, with young people. 2 congressmen, a Democrat and a Republican, were instrumental in getting the organizing going. By the end of 1970, the first Earth Day and other environmental justice movements of the time led to the creation of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the passage of other first-of-their-kind environmental laws, including the National Environmental Education Act, OSHA, and the Clean Air Act. 2 years later, Congress passed the Clean Water Act. A year after that, the Endangered Species Act. And soon after that, federal pesticide laws. These laws have protected millions of people from disease and death and have protected hundreds of species from extinction. Earth Day ultimately became a global phenomenon and is recognized now as the largest secular observance in the world, marked by more than 1 billion people every year as a day of action to change human behavior and create global, national, and local policy changes. So, amen for Earth Day. Amen. I mentioned earlier about how our technological achievements have in many respects afforded us an ability to forget that we are a part of the interdependent web of all existence. An interesting twist to this story, however, is that technology is also what forces some humility and that web back to our attention. For it is the unrelenting extraction of resources in service to those technologies that attempt to protect us from the surrounding environment that have contributed to the climate crisis we are in now. So if we had never created air conditioning in the first place, would we be so dependent on it now? The environmental arms race is not one that we are ever going to win. We cannot come up with increasingly more consumptive technologies that will insulate us from the environmental effects of those very technologies. Okay, so I have a side note here. Some of you may be aware about the advancements and the breakthrough that happened with nuclear fusion recently. And I just got back from visiting my daughter in Boston, and one of her roommates is on the MIT lab that is working at Lawrence Livermore, and they are very helpful that we will have cold fusion at some point, which is energy creation from where there was none, like our sun does for us. But application of such fusion is decades, if not centuries away. So we cannot wait or rely on that. And even said, I remember learning how efficiency, say for instance in light bulbs that we switch from incandescent to LED light bulbs, is not going to actually lessen the demand for electricity. A plan for conservation, a desire to reduce overall consumption always has to go hand in hand with efficiency. Nature abhors a vacuum, and it seems like humans do too. So we will always look at that gap between how much energy we're using and how much we're not, and see that as free capacity that we will somehow then use up. So, and I am, of course, neglecting to mention the fun factor that acts as a convenient multiplier to all of this activity, which is capitalism. The ability for some people to generate wealth from this act of separation from the web of life has also, of course, hastened the climate crisis, and at times can make it feel intractable. When I think about our current dependence on cars, for example, it is hard to imagine a world without cars. The impact automobiles have had on our lives, on the development of this country, was truly driven by greed, by profit-seeking companies, by complicit lawmakers, with the result being a built environment that separates us from one another and has transformed nature. Nature is not a dualistic proposition. We do not go out into nature. We are nature, and right now, for most of us, our nature has been defined by that extractive decision-making that is endangering the planet, endangering our big home, and endangering us. Our nature, not out there, but embodied by us, as we just felt when we were those trees, is at risk. We do not grieve the planet. We do not cry out to protect the planet. We cry out for ourselves. For young people in particular, the climate crisis is an existential one. Sometimes it is difficult to imagine a life that recognizes our place in the interdependent web. At those times, we can find strength in remembering our ancestors who did, like those who established that first Earth Day and fought the fight, and whose fight we continue today. Reverend Sophia Betancourt, who will be our future UUA president, reminds us that the climate crisis is a transgenerational problem with a transgenerational solution. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But knowing that, holding that we have ancestors before us and descendants in our future, let's lean into community and share with one another what's on our hearts and minds. As we prepare to share joys and sorrows with one another, take another deep breath. We can give ourselves the gift of attention. We give that to one another. There's so few times in our busy lives where we have a moment of this type of sharing. We have some stillness. Now is a time for sharing how you're feeling, what is on your heart, what joys or gratitudes you want to lift up, what pain or concern you want to ease through sharing. We can create a circle of caring together. Michelle, would you mind taking that around? I just want to share my own pain and frustration over continuing gun violence in this country that seems to not offer any solution. I know there will be a better day, but it is so sad and hard and awful. All right. Thank you. I will continue to.
Yeah, I was a cheerleader. I can talk loud. And you gave me a microphone, I might not give it back. My name is Stephanie White, and I have a joy and a concern. My joy is I'm with you all, and I have the support of this community and have had this community support for over 43 years. I'm currently serving on the school board, and I'm running for re-election. Hello. And as you know, this is kind of a weird time in our society when it comes to school. So my concern is I do have someone running against me who had been on the school board before, and when he was on the school board before is when everything went south in the district. And so I've been on there for 3 years now. We finally have turned the corner. We're starting to have some success. We're obviously going to have a curriculum in our schools again, thankfully. And right now we have the opportunity to hire a new superintendent. So my concern is if I get beat out by my opponent, we're going to have the same old, same old. But I appreciate everyone here who has lent their support to me and the community in the past. So thank you.
Thank you for your gift of service. Early voting starts tomorrow. Get your friends and family out to vote.
My name is Lou. When Michelle and I moved to Sun City now 11 years ago, we found this little UU congregation meeting in the activity building in Sun City. Handful of people, 30, 40 good folks. Some of you here were part of that when we arrived. It was lay-led. And one of the key pieces of any time have a gathering, whether you call it a worship service or anything else, usually is around music. And as a retired minister, there were many times I climbed in the pulpit and had a prayer and said, let the musicians, the choir, really be good today, because my sermon stinks. And we've been gifted in this church to have a wonderful cadre of musicians every Sunday. And I talked to Judy Mayo this morning, and she said to me, this is my last Sunday after all these years playing for our church. She's really become a full-time caretaker for Sid, her husband, and we all understand that. But Judy, I want to say on behalf of the congregation, thank you so much for sharing your gifts, your talents. You've been a blessing to us and an inspiration. Thank you very much.
Good morning, I'm Pat. I just want to shout out a joy to some of the wonderful things we have basically in our backyard. We took a field trip this week, and we went up to Waco to the mammoth site, where we've got I think they're paleontologists, digging out mammoths that are 68,000 years old, and they're in amazingly remarkable condition. It's a national monument. They're open 7 days a week. A ranger takes you on a tour, so it's fantastic. And then we stopped at the Galt site in Florence, and it looks like in the past people were able to see more than what we saw, but the things that we learned about the prehistorical peoples that were on that site just outside of Florence that are shaking up the world of prehistory, because they're a lot older than the other settlements that have been found on this continent before. So it was pretty amazing, and it's just right here in our backyard.
I'm Ron, and looking around, we're going to need more chairs.
And we know where those chairs are stored. That's good news. John, did you have your hand up?
My name's John Walker. I have a couple of joys. My main joy today is that my sister is moving to Sun City next week. Sold her house in Florida, fortunately, and she's had a tough last 3 years. Loss of her husband, loss of one of her sons this last year. So a lot of grief, but she's going to be getting a little house in Sun City, and that'll be nice to have her around as well. My other joy is just for the incredible gift of the planet, the Earth itself, and has been a big inspiration to me since the 70s, the environmental movement, and I hope it continues strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'm glad your sister's coming to be near you. Here you go, Joe.
My name is Joe Nessheim. Judy has served us all these years playing music, and her partner for many years was Peter Geiger. And this chalice was built by Peter Geiger and is a memorial to his service to the congregation, so I'm grateful for his service as well. By the way, I have a letter of recognition from the President of the United States for Peter Geiger that came into my possession. I'm going to give it back to Clara Geiger. She brought Pete's music to ask me to sort through it and to keep what we could. And there's a letter from the President of the United States thanking him for his service in the Navy Band.
Wow, hey, that's great. Thanks. Thanks, Joe, and thank you for your gifts. Anybody else? Joys, concerns? I'd like to lift up those that we don't see here today. We have many of our friends who are hopefully seeing us over live stream, trying to stay connected. And I'm thinking of Bob and Darlene Douglas. Linda, I'm thinking of your Hans Mueller. Francis Reiser, Lynn Ellis. That's just to name a few. Jana, I miss seeing those folks. It saddens me that they can't be with us. Some of it's because of medical reasons. So in our way, we want to say hello. We're thinking of you. We welcome you back in our hearts and souls and hope you can be back here someday.
For the joy of family coming close, the joy of coming together here today, for gratitude of community leaders who care for our community, for the concern that that care is not always shared. Let's take a deep cleansing breath and exhale. We feel empathy and compassion for the hurt in this world. We feel joy and gratitude for musicians who help us along our way. May the caring in the community and this community offer space to you and all of these thoughts, spoken and unspoken.
There's a favorite hymn of this church. It's in your teal hymnal. It's 1064. It's Blue Boat Home. So I know you can sing this. Hopefully the video will project and you'll be able to sing along. The words will be projected as well. Please remain seated so that everybody can see that video. Now,
standing on these mountains and plains, far far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
I remember a show on PBS that was called Big Blue Marble that I really liked when I was a kid. I regularly am tempted to despair about social injustices, especially during a legislative session in Texas. It feels like a mountain, the injustice that gets passed. Defunding public education, denying human rights to marginalized people like trans folk, women, and people of color. And yes, gutting environmental protections too. At times like these, I do hold hope in Unitarian abolitionist minister Theodore Parker's exhortation that the moral arc of the universe may be long, but it bends towards justice. That is a moment of faith, but not a misplaced faith. I have hope because all alongside the injustices, there are people who have said no, who have witnessed and protested and demanded change, and yes, gotten it. The EPA didn't come about in a vacuum. It was a result of concerted efforts among many different people over many years. So I just want to take a moment now to reflect and who you can recall, just think for a moment, as a pivotal figure in the movement for environmental justice. And I invite you to shout those out. Think of someone who you think was a pivotal person for the environmental movement. Rachel Carson, Silent Spring, DDT. Wendell Berry. Yes. Amazing poet and environmentalist. Who else? Teddy Roosevelt, conservationist, national parks. Ralph Nader, gadfly. Pollution. The two senators who started Earth Day, that's correct. E.O. Wilson. I think of Douglas Tallamay. Lady Bird Johnson. Greta Thunberg. No, I was saying ancestors, but yeah. James Lovelock created the Gaia project, that the Earth was an organism unto itself. Wangari Maathai in Africa was a reforestation Kenyan Nobel Peace Prize winner. Johnny Appleseed. I'll say that many of the people we immediately associate with the environmental movement are white. Unfortunately, for much of its early years, the environmental movement's approach that lands which were stolen from indigenous people needed to be preserved, managed, and protected. And that's a very Eurocentric, Judeo-Christian approach that emphasizes the separation of humans from nature, kind of that we're going to go out into nature, that people do something different. This belief structure excludes those of indigenous people who recognize that the interdependent web of all existence was real. In the words of Paula Gunn Allen of the Laguna Pueblo, the land is not really the place separate from ourselves where we act out the drama of our isolate destinies. It is not a matter of being close to nature. The earth is, in a very real sense, the same as ourself or selves. So yeah, like I said before, know that we do not go out into nature, but we are nature. And of course, people of color were also excluded from environmental movements, even though their own fights for civil rights were very much intertwined with those of the environment. For example, the United Farm Workers, being led by Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez, campaigning against pesticide use. It is only more recently that the intersectionality of these concerns are understood by white-led environmental movements and learning how a community-based approach to environmentalism is necessary. When we see Greta Thunberg able to galvanize millions with school strikes for climate, she also asks us, why me? Why not follow the leadership of Autumn Peltier of the Wicamcog, or Helena Gwalinga of the Ecuadorian Amazon, or Vanessa Nakate of Uganda? There was a famous incident where there was a group of environmentalists and they literally cropped out the African woman, so they were all white. That was just last year. On Thursday night, I attended an online worship service given by the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for the Earth. One of the worship leaders, Reverend Kelly Dignan, called forth the reflections of Reverend Sophia Betancourt that I mentioned earlier, that the climate crisis is a transgenerational problem with a transgenerational solution. We have our ancestors to thank for who we are now, and we are building a legacy for our descendants to inherit. When I think about my own ancestors, I realize how many good examples of environmental stewardship were passed down to me. Living through World War II in Holland, my Dutch grandparents lived the way of reduce, reuse, and recycle long before that became a catchphrase. They bought little, reused every container, every piece of paper for something else. And I remember taking glass bottles to recycle in the glasbak, which means glass box, down the street in the 70s. I remember them as members of the World Wildlife Fund and Vegetarian Society, too. Similarly, my American grandmother in rural Virginia took great pride in her garden, canning and freezing vegetables, so much better than what you could buy in a store. What environmental habits and perspectives have you inherited from your family? You can take a moment to talk to someone near you about that. We'll take a few minutes for you to share with those around you what you remember of your own family's history and how that impacts you today. Just a few. All right. Does anyone want? It's okay. Does anyone want to share what it is that they're remembering? Like I mentioned about recycling glass with my grandparents, is there anyone who wants to share what they remember? We're all here for connection. We're not really here for the sermon. I was just asking, was there anyone who wants to volunteer what they remember, what comes up for them when they think about their ancestors and what they may have taught you about how you live your life now? Is there anything that you remember?
I remember my dad saved every washer, screw. And they were put in little baby food jars.
Yes. The lids were nailed to the, yes, and you just unscrewed them. Anything else, Clara?
I grew up in the house my parents were born in that their parents lived in. And my mother planted a fir tree that we haven't unfortunately owned the house for a while, but I
The tree grow. Yes. Yep, yep. Anything else, John?
Whenever we would go to a park, my dad would have us for the first 5 minutes pick up all the trash in the park.
Oh, lovely.
We played, and it was, this was at a time when people had kind of a different attitude about litter than they do now.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. We could clean up the entire park, 3 kids clean up the entire park in 5 minutes.
Yep. Yep. Those are wonderful memories, and I hope you are inspired to continue in that vein with some of those actions. And what you received from our social justice team is a nudge in that direction. So if there's anything on this list that looks like something that you might be able to do, we all have different capacities around how we can do these types of actions, which are voluntary. But if you see something here that resonates with you, please take a moment to think about how you can do some personal changes that will help you to feel good about how you are caring for our Earth home. While the vast majority of climate change and the responses to the climate crisis will come about through concerted justice movements at the national and international level, making a practice of caring for our big home in small ways kind of reinforces our understanding of our connection, of our place in that big interdependent web of life. As John Robbins says, humans are a part of the web of life. What we do to the planet, what we do to other species, and what we do to other people, we end up doing to ourselves. May our UU faith and our community here at San Gabriel hold us and call us into right action as we covenant together to care for our Earth home. Amen. And blessed be it. Yeah, may it be so.
Did anybody wake up this morning and go, what planet am I on? Yesterday was gorgeous. I opened the door today and it felt like winter. And it made me say, my Lord, what a morning. That's your cue, by the way. Our offertory music is My Lord, What a Morning, and it is arranged by Jay Althouse. In honor of Earth Day this morning, our offering is going to help the UU Ministry for Earth. As you heard Corinna say, this is our UUA, a national ministry that we have. A couple years ago through General Assembly, I was introduced to that organization and became very active in their monthly meetings and or the services that they offer. When they put out calls for action, I'll send that to our Habitat team for consideration, how we can incorporate such actions on our premises. So we encourage your support of the UUMFE because it empowers bold and accountable action for environmental justice among our UUA and other people and of our faith and of our conscience. So your contribution today works to bring the interdependent web of life back into balance. In a small way, but at least we're trying. So the offering is gratefully accepted.
Thank you, Joe and Judy. And Ron Karish, our treasurer, is now going to give us an update on our pledge drive.
I'm back. Last week, I announced that it was the beginning of our 4-week pledge drive. We're trying to raise $170,000 to fill the room and continue for another year. 1 week is gone, 25% of our time. We have $77,000, which is almost half of the amount of money we're trying to collect. This is incredible. It's the best we have had in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years that I've been counting the money. So thank you very much. Your generosity is appreciated. We have members and friends who have continued to pledge. Some have been able to increase their pledge. We have new members and friends who have pledged. I was optimistic before, and now I'm very optimistic. So we're doing well. We have money in the bank. By the way, our property, where we are in the 2 small houses, is assessed at $1.2 million. We have a mortgage of $200 and some thousand, so we are asset rich. Thank you very much. Those of you who have not sent in a pledge card, I look forward to hearing from you in the next 3 weeks. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ron.
So now is when we invite everyone to coffee and conversation after the service. It's okay, Michelle, it's okay. And our Habitat team, we were going to have that on the deck today, but because of the inclement weather, we're going to still have it in our Mark's Place coffee space. And our Habitat team, we have such gratitude for them and all the work that they do on our grounds day in and day out. And they would love to give you a tour so that you can learn about all the sustainable ways that they are keeping our sanctuary a green sanctuary. And we use nothing but native plants in our space. And so you could learn some of these things and take that home with you. I also have a scavenger hunt for our younger people if they would like to go and get familiar with their parents about our church grounds as well. We have, again, the green pledge card for you to look over, and we are going to receive some gifts. Michelle, I'm going to, as our social justice, one of our social justice team folks, she'll talk a little bit more about what we have in store.
Folks, I know we're running a few minutes behind when you normally get your coffee, so bear with us, okay? But I hope you're having a good service. Yes, the green sheets for you to consider. You can turn in today or anytime during the month of May. Susan Patterson, where are you, Susan Patterson? Would you stand up, please? Susan is one of our social justice team members. She invites you to come to the back of church. There's a quiz. A pop-up quiz. So test your knowledge back there if you wouldn't mind. Pick 1 or 2 questions and see if you know what the answers might be. Clara Dugan, where are you, Clara? Turn around, Clara Dugan, yes, see us. See Clara, as you go to get your coffee or exit church, she has got green reusable shopping bags for you and an article that was in our newspaper, local one, about how you can revive your food and reduce your food waste. So be sure to take that. There's some great tips in that one. Let's see what else. The pledge, reusable. You probably are noticing social justice is trying to highlight different justice issues each month. You know, reproductive justice, Black History Month, Women's History, etc. This one was Earth and Environmental Justice. Next month, we'll be looking at PFLAG and the LGBTQ kind of activities that we might engage in. We do that as a way of introducing you to different justice issues that our church and our UUA are promoting, and as a way to find out what you might be interested in, what you have passion around. We can't all do everything, but everybody can do something. So my motto is do what you can when you can. And join us on our social justice team. You might be a liaison to another organization that you can tell the justice team about and what we might do with another church, like we are with the homeless issue, collaborating with First Presbyterian here in Georgetown. We're not doing all the groundwork. They're collecting the food items and distributing it directly to the unsheltered people. But we can help by donating grocery bags, for example, that the homeless folks can use to gather their items. It's simple ways that we can collaborate. Again, with Live Oak UU, we're going to work on the homeless and reproductive choice issues. So join us when you can, or let us know of issues that you want to tackle here in our church. We'd be glad to do that. I have 4 R's for you. I want you to take home with you today. Our connection word for the month is resistance. Resist in a good way for justice. So, uh-oh. You might get lucky and I misplaced it. Which I did, so I'll tell you about that another time. But it had to do, it's on the bulletin board actually, about recreate, renew, resist. I want to let you know about Greta Thunberg. Lou is reading this book. We've talked about maybe having a discussion on this book. If you think you might be interested in that, would you approach Lou and I about the possibility of that? And there is plans for an interfaith environmental, what are you calling it, Lou, a forum maybe in the fall. We'll keep you posted on that. Thank you for your time and energy today, and enjoy your coffee. Anything else, Ray?
And there are some native plants. Oh, we have some
Ooh.
that we dug up in my garden. So they're inside today because of the weather.
We have some plants as prizes. We close our sacred time together when we extinguish our chalice. I again share with you words from our own Reverend Jamie. We extinguish this flame, but not the chalice inside of our hearts, which serves as a beacon of hope. Emboldened by its blaze, we are reminded that our strength as prophetic and powerful people is found when we come together at San Gabriel, which is here in Georgetown to stay, no matter what may come our way.